bad for me. This is a very close to my heart topic because I had for a long time was not able to eat dairy, and it is delicious and it's very nice to be able to eat it now. So we'll give people a minute to come in, but also if you're watching this replay, just some reminders. It really does help to hit the subscribe button and the like button. We are getting a lot of subscriptions and likes, more than normal, which means that more people are seeing it. I don't care what the number is, but I want to reach people, and you can help us do that. So we really appreciate you liking if you do and subscribing. Don't like it if you don't like it. That's fine. But like and subscribe to the channel is really helpful in getting us to be able to reach more people and get this information out. So that's something you can do to help us get this information out. Okay, so we're going to talk about, dairy, but the chat. So if you want to leave a comment or have a question about what we're talking about, please put it in the chat. It takes 15 seconds for it to get to me because it is a free version, but that's fine. We'll be here for that. And I'm going to try to keep this very concise and organized so that we're able to have a shorter video about this little topic that will be nice and easy to share. So, all right, so we're going to get started. Is dairy bad for me? That's what we're talking about today. So there are a few aspects of dairy, and that can bring a lot of confusion. So let's back up a little bit. One of the things that we often, dairy is a often disliked thing in the natural health world, or people who are trying to get a hold of their health or back in control. One of the first things people are told is to get off dairy and gluten. There's reasons for both of those, and there's nuances to both of those. As a general rule, when you're starting out, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but there are very helpful things to certain dairy aspects that we don't want to get rid of, that we do want to be present, and that do actually help us heal for most people. So what I want to do today is break down what are those different types of things. Hello to everyone who's saying hi to me. What are those different types of aspects of protein, or of milk? Sorry. What are the different aspects of milk? What do each of them, how can each of them be causing problems or be modified to not cause problems? And then what do we do kind of in the depth? Because, we mostly talk about GAPS eventually here. So we'll talk about the leaky gut healing and why that's an issue when you have a leaky gut. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. Hopefully pretty simple and straightforward. So number one, we have dairy aspect. Number one, which is there is protein in dairy. There's lactase and, there's lactose. Sorry, lactase is the enzyme. There's lactose, there's casein. There are other proteins as well. These are proteins in the milk. This is what, if you have an allergy, an actual allergy to milk, this is what you're reacting to. The definition of allergy is that you react to a protein. Now we're going to talk about some different other reactions we can see, but an allergic reaction to milk is a protein. You have to have a protein that your body identifies in a specific way with a immune system, a memory T cell, which will remember, or an antibody that will remember, hey, that thing, it's not good for us. Let's make it go away. Okay, so protein is number one. Number two, there is a sugar aspect. Milk is very, very sweet. That sugar aspect of milk feeds Flora, and that can cause a reaction. So we can get lactic casein reducing bacteria. We can get that eating the casein and creating an opiate. So then we have mood shifts and swings and changes and all sorts of things because of the casein. That's their casein protein. We also just get the sugar in the milk feeds the yeast or potentially other bacteria or other flora in your gut. When that happens, you will get a eating and pooping, if you will, right? A off-gassing or a byproduct creation. And that potentially is a toxin that is harmful or painful in the joints or whatever, goes to the skin, gets pushed out and causes rashes, eczema, etc. Or it's something that goes more subtly, clogs up the liver, and you get more diffuse symptoms. So milk can be a protein and you can react to that, or it can feed flora and you can react to that. The third thing, now that's sugar and protein. There are ways to take care of both of those things, but there is a third one. There is how do I talk about this? This is a big one. So what I call is an energetic or, quote, herbal property of milk. The herbal property of milk is a way to describe that it does a thing. So when your body's out of balance, milk is very mucogenic, meaning producing mucus. It is warming. It is congesting, if we were to use Ayurvedic or Chinese medicine words. It's very congesting. It's warming. It's a heat food, all those kind of things. That can be really helpful. But if your body's out of balance, it can be unhelpful. And so what you want to do is just see, what do we have going on in your body when you're, quote, not tolerating dairy? Because depending on what's happening in those three categories, you can do different things about it. I also call that third one energetic because remember how I said milk protein is the only thing you're allergic to, but people seem to have a pretty strong allergic reaction to things even like ghee, even a toothpick of ghee. You dip the toothpick in, and just what's stuck on it is what you eat. People react to that all the time. Why is that? How can that be possible when ghee is clarified butter? There's no protein. It's a tiny amount. The body's clearly not finding proteins to attack. How is it having a reaction? I'm sure there's maybe a different way that people have studied. I just consider this energetic reaction or the herbal properties. It as a substance does things to your body, and when you're out of balance, it can create more balance issues or imbalance issues. Right? Okay, so those are the three aspects of dairy that we want to talk about. What do we do about it? How is it that we're going to overcome that? So taking each one at a time, first off, let's look at proteins. This is really one of the simplest things to address and understand. If we have a milk protein allergy, it tells us one thing: you have a leaky gut. Somehow proteins were not getting broken down small enough, and they are getting into the bloodstream whole. Those whole proteins are not supposed to be there. The body starts to attack them, as it should, and break them down. And when that happens continuously, then our immune system starts having issues and targeting proteins of milk proteins specifically. That's when we start getting reactions, allergy reactions, all the way up to anaphylactic reactions to dairy. Okay, proteins. 2 things, 3 things, I don't know. There's things to fix this. There's a lot to do in this category. So if you are having a protein allergy, this is a skin prick test or a scratch test. They're testing for an allergic reaction or response. That is what you're getting with a protein allergy. We do a skin test in GAPS called a skin sensitivity test. It is taking a little bit of the food that you are testing and putting it on the inside of the wrist with a Band-Aid over it that you are not allergic to and going to sleep. Waking up in the morning, checking it. Is it red, irritated spot? If so, you have an allergic protein reaction to that food, and you should still avoid it because your body immune system will react to it. It hasn't calmed down. The gut hasn't been sealed. It's still in a reactory mode. So eating that food will not be helpful at that time yet. Okay. So skin sensitivity test, you can do this for any food, anytime. If you have an anaphylactic reaction or one of your child has an anaphylactic reaction to the food, you need to be doing this with a practitioner, and it will be a long time before we will put that food anaphylactically on a child's wrist and put them to bed, right? That's not the time to do it. This is I get gas, I get bloating, I just didn't tolerate that food well. Most people who put a food that does make symptoms for them, most of the time when they put that on their skin, it does not cause a red, angry reaction. And then they eat it and it causes a reaction. That's right, because we're only testing for a protein reaction on your skin sensitivity test. We're not checking for did we feed the flora? Are your enzymes not doing well? We're just going, is your immune system targeting specifically the proteins in milk? Okay, so if it's not doing that, you can safely eat it. We may or may not choose to eat it right then. That depends on what you're doing and what your diet looks like. But we know that there's no allergic reaction to it if it doesn't show up on the wrist. Okay, feeding the flora. No, sorry, we're not done with protein. So one, we want to check for that. If we have a protein reaction, we need to wait, heal the leaky gut, let the immune system calm down. We can do things with dairy specifically to help out. So if you have a protein reaction to casein and or lactose, I keep thinking the lactose is the sugar. It might be. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. My brain is not computing which one it is. Casein definitely is. Lactose, I don't think it's the sugar. Anyway, it's fine. Yes, it is a sugar. Lactose is a sugar. Okay, there we go. My brain figured it out. So casein, there are other ways of protein. Casein and whey, those were the two proteins my brain was thinking of. Lactose is the sugar. So for the protein of casein or whey, most people are reacting to casein, not whey. We can do a long fermented or cultured yogurt or milk kefir or kefir. That is going to break down most, if not all, of the casein, depending on how long you culture it. So culturing includes taking a live probiotic culture, like a yogurt culture or a kefir grains, and putting them in milk, and then letting them from culture on the table or the counter for 24 hours or more. Some people need them cultured for 3 days so that there is no casein left in that milk. It's all broken down by the flora. Also, we're breaking down sugar at the same time, and that also plays in, but we're going to deal with that separately. So if you do long cultured dairy, you're going to have proteins be essentially broken down and potentially all the way broken down depending on how much you get. That's number one. The other thing we can do if we are having a protein reaction is we can avoid protein. So that's why people can do sour cream or butter or ghee, but they can't do milk, right? And then yogurt, kefir, and even cheese are cultured. And a lot of people, if they have a little help with the enzyme breakdown, because maybe their enzymes aren't working very well, they break down the milk protein. Even if you have a little bit of a leaky gut, that's enough to not be a problem internally, and then you don't have a reaction of symptoms. One of the things that happens when proteins get in, or when undigested food particles get through a leaky gut into the bloodstream, is you're going to have symptoms just from that. So it's not always the immune system attacking the protein. It also is that your undigested milk protein goes and gunks something up. We're not supposed to have milk proteins in our bloodstream or in our joints. That should be broken down to amino acids that are building blocks ready to be used, and often escorted even at that stage. What we don't want are things running amok. Think about pouring sand in your motor. That's what letting food come in that's not broken down properly. Oil is great. Sand is not going to help, right? And it's going to be a problem if you put the wrong thing in. Okay, so we can break down proteins with culturing, long culturing. We can also avoid proteins by doing milk fat and not milk, right? The protein part of the milk. That can be helpful. We're going to talk about GAPS protocol for reintroducing dairy, and this will all make sense and kind of be a nice, neat thing because I'm jumping a little bit. But, okay, that's protein. So we need the protein to come in, not be reacted to in the gut, stay in the gut, be broken down by enzymes, be absorbed into the bloodstream as amino acids where it's unrecognizable as protein, and go and do helpful things, what it's supposed to do with no issues. Okay, things where that goes wrong so far. We can have a leaky gut, so proteins get in. We can have poor enzyme or stomach acid so that our food does not get broken down properly, or bad gut flora, not enough gut flora, because that helps break down our food as well. We can also have, we can get complicated, which I will just mention, which is some cows produce milk proteins that are much bigger and harder to break down than other cows. Black and white Jerseys have very hard proteins, very big proteins. They're also usually full of hormones and things like that. They can be called A1 cows there genetically bred, not inbred, but just bred to produce more milk, of course. But in the meantime, they have milk that has bigger molecules. They are full of estrogen, which means their milk is going to be more estrogen rich than other cows' milks. And they often have mastitis because they are constantly with very large udders. And that mastitis is why we have to pasteurize milk from dairies, because up to a third of it is actually white blood cells, otherwise known as pus. So A2 cows are brown cows, or those more just small farm cows. They produce a lot less milk, which is why we don't use them commercially, because money. And they have a smaller milk protein that's easier for a body to break down. And then when you get raw milk from a farm, you are going to get cows that are well treated and healthy. And if they're not healthy, the owner knows because he cares about them. And he's going to pull them off the line, treat them if needed. I know most of the farmers around here that do raw milk shares, if they treat a cow, they're off the line for a month after being done with antibiotics to make sure it's as much out of the system as it can be, really. So, okay, so proteins matter too. The size of the protein matters, and some people can eat A2 breeding-wise genetics, right? A2 cow milk with no problem. And some people, even with A1 raw cow milk, can't tolerate that until it's been cultured or at all. So there's tons of stages of what dairy intolerance means and what you want to do. And I'm trying to do in a not very orderly fashion. I'm sorry. My notes are more orderly, but I'm not following them, which is what is the things that we're breaking down. Sorry, where is your breakdown? Where is your body not able to handle? So number one, is it milk protein? Is it big milk protein of A1 cows and you could tolerate A2 cows? If you have raw milk, maybe you can do better with that because it has live enzymes that help you digest the milk, so then it's not a problem. Maybe you actually have a leaky gut and the proteins are getting through and that is causing symptoms, either an allergic reaction symptom because the immune system's involved, or just a gunking up the body because food is where it shouldn't be symptom, right? Which can also cause pain, headaches, lots of different things, okay? So we've got all of that. I think that's it with proteins. Number two, feeding the flora. So this is about sugar mostly. So lactose. Lactase is an enzyme. We need enzymes to break down sugars as well as proteins. There's different enzymes for carbs, for proteins, and for fats, essentially. Bile mostly, but okay, so we have that. If we're feeding the flora, meaning you drink milk with sugar in it, and then you get happy, and then you crash, you're probably feeding your flora. And in kids, we see this a lot because they get, mood swings, they're really happy, and then they crash, and we don't know. We might blame blood sugar because it maybe is, but it could actually be a toxicity thing where they just fed their flora that is then producing an off gas that causes symptoms that then go to the brain and affect mood, or go to the body and affect things, or just stay in the gut and make people really gassy or burpy or spit uppy. A lot of babies can't tolerate milk. They can't tolerate milk and milk sugars because their flora is not good. Ultimately, all this has come back to, if you had good flora and a sealed gut lining, you're not going to see problems because everything is in balance. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, feeding your flora. The sugars are making things. The way to get rid of this is, one, do things without sugar. So butter doesn't really have milk sugar in it. Clarified butter shouldn't have any if it's done properly. Sour cream shouldn't have any milk sugar in it because any little bit of sugar is cultured, so it should be eaten up and consumed by the bacteria that are culturing the cream. Our yogurt or kefir, if it's cultured long enough, will also not have any sugar because it is eaten by the flora instead of by us. So then when we eat it, we get the probiotic benefit, the proteins are broken down, and the sugar is already digested. This makes yogurt kind of sour, and people don't like it until they have switched their taste buds to healthy healing foods, and then it's actually quite delicious and tart. The longer you culture it, the more sugar is going to be eaten up by the bacteria. So some people need a 24-hour, that's GAPS legal, is 24 or more. because most of the casein's broken down and all the sugar practically is eaten. Some people need a 48 or a 36, depending on what their situation is inside and how much sugar is going to affect even just a little bit their symptoms. Okay. Biggest thing with sugar, again, we can avoid it just like proteins. We can use parts of the milk that don't have as much sugar, and we can culture it, which is the best, most guaranteed way to do it. Energetically or herbally, right? So here is the big deal, and this is what we have to be patient. If this is your problem, that you can't tolerate anything, any kind of dairy, you can't tolerate ghee, even a toothpick amount, what do we need to do? Energetically, your body is somehow recognizing it. And this kind of gets into, for me, as I'm studying it and trying to understand it, I think it's like a homeopathic, that's why I call it energetically. That there's no milk protein. Why are they reacting? There's no reason that your body should know that it should react. My biggest theory is that there is still an energetic imprint, right? And the body's recognizing that. And that's a pretty significant intolerance or potential allergy. That's going to take a while for your body to calm down and get better from that. I've maybe met one person, but again, I haven't given up on them yet, but I've not met anyone really who can't finally start tolerating ghee. Now, it could be years of journey, and so some people we're not there yet, but I haven't given up on them yet. Or they haven't started GAPS yet because they're not able to. But healing with GAPS, doing the leaky gut, getting that settled, getting your flora rebalanced is going to allow you to overcome even this kind of energetic imprint recognition. And maybe you need to do homeopathy. There are homeopathic remedies for you to take about foods that you've reacted to previously to help your body change. That's a thing. So if you're in this realm, it probably would be helpful to work with a homeopath and in your inquiry, ask them the question, hey, what do you think about dairy or food intolerances, and just see about this idea. Now, this idea I'm saying, I've never read this anywhere, this energetic, people don't call it that. People will acknowledge that people react to ghee, even, which they shouldn't be, but I haven't heard anyone like put into terms. So no one's going to know what I'm saying. You'll have to explain it to them. But this is kind of the idea that I'm theorizing on, and let me know what homeopaths say if you ask them, because they are the ones who are way more learned in that world and that thought pattern. Okay, energetic, okay, and then herbal. So those are kind of different areas, although I kind of put them together in my brain. The quote, herbal properties are things that milk does. It's not an allergy if you get a little mucusy from eating milk. Now, it may show an imbalance in your body. So when the liver is behind and congested, milk will make it more congested and more sluggish. If you are in a damp or heat state in Chinese medicine definitions, eating dairy is not great for you. It's going to cause potentially problems, at least symptoms, right? So when we look at the herbal properties, yes, milk is a mucogenic. I have had times where I've drinking milk and it causes a lot of mucus. And I've had times where I've drinking milk and it doesn't cause mucus. And it had nothing to do with the milk itself. It had everything to do with my state of balance of my organs, especially the state of my liver. So dairy intolerance is a liver symptom listed out in the symptom survey that I have people do. It's really that big of a deal. So it may be that you are not tolerating dairy just because your liver is not okay. It needs some help and support and cleansing and decongesting, and then the dairy will be fine. But dairy is kind of congesting, and it will elevate problems. Does that make sense? Hopefully so. Okay. Oh, thanks, Sydney, for jumping in. You can tolerate A2, but not A1. Yep, so you're in that category of that tolerance. So back to what do we do about it? So we can modify dairy products or choose only the ones that we are tolerating at this time. And that is the short, quick, if you want a quick fix and leave, that's the answer. Figure out which ways you can tolerate it, bring the aids in, right? Bring in, I'm going to ferment this for 24 hours and then I can tolerate it. I can drink A2 milk and I'm just going to get that and then I don't have to worry about more. Obviously, I have a passion for going deeper and making sure that we are addressing the root problem. I'm grateful for things that show up. Ooh, this is a problem. We have issues here. The liver is congested, the gut is leaky, whatever's going on, I'm glad for that. So when that happens, what we want to do, what I say is let's dig in and thank that indicator for telling us what's going on in the body and figure it out. We're going to talk about, and I have a quick slide I'm going to show about the dairy introduction protocol. This is in the yellow GAPS book and probably the blue one. I haven't looked for it specifically. In the blue GAPS book too, probably, it is the stages of the dairy introduction. So what do you do? And now that we have the 26 minutes of history we've just done, you're going to be able to make very clear sense of what this protocol and why we do things we do. So I'm going to run through it in a second and share my slide. The other thing we have to do is heal the leaky gut. If you don't have protein allergy now, and you continue with a leaky gut and keep eating any food, not just dairy, you will potentially, eventually, develop an allergy to that food. That's why a lot of people, once they get going on food allergies, really keep adding them because the gut being open and leaky and allowing proteins in is what's causing the food allergy. It has nothing to do with the food itself. The food is fine. If it's a real healthy, good food, not manipulated or glyphosate-free, that makes it worse. But if it's just food, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with the food. It's the gut. The gut lets it in. The immune system has yet another enemy in its perspective that's getting in a whole protein without being broken down, and more food intolerances will build up. This is not just about dairy. All right, let's see if I can share my screen here. So, the dairy introduction protocol is, okay, that's sharing. The dairy introduction protocol is to be done alongside of GAPS. So, if you are not ready to do GAPS yet, what you're going to do right now is look at these stages because the step one is the most likely to not have a reaction food. Ghee, homemade ghee is best. You can get ghee, which is clarified butter, at the store, and some brands are much better than others. So you can do some research. There are really companies that this is what they do, and there's health properties to ghee different from butter and all of that. They get milk from certain they do it as an art, right? It is a health art. So that's something that you could do. Or you can home make your ghee, and we'll talk about how to make clarified butter. And then we go to butter, yogurt, and sour cream, which are cultured, kefir, sour cream, kefir, and then cheddar cheese, and then not homemade stuff, and then potentially raw milk. Okay. So why do we do this? So number one, if you're not doing GAPS, you can look at this and see what your limitation is, right? So if you can't tolerate butter, maybe you can tolerate ghee. If you can tolerate butter and ghee, maybe you can try sour cream and or yogurt, especially if it's homemade yogurt. So this you can utilize to see, okay, what is this? Where are we at? What can I do? If you would like to be free and eat everything down the whole list. So when I started GAPS diet, I could not even do step one. I reacted fairly strongly to ghee. Good. I think it was my own clarified butter from cultured butter. Like it was the best that you could get. And I reacted for a while. It took me maybe 3-4 months into GAPS diet before I could even tolerate ghee. I now drink raw milk. I now drink cooked raw milk, which means I don't even need the live enzymes in the milk anymore to digest it. I can actually digest the milk on my own, in my own gut. That's a huge change, right? And so what I want for people, and Debbie asked here, what are the benefits of drinking milk? For some people, it's not as big a deal. Some people, it's not really great for their ethnic, blood type, whatever, eating. Like you just may not want to eat a lot of it because it's not good and compatible with the way your body runs. What I think the benefit is of having milk is for freedom, for hospitality, you know, things like that, that you can eat something with a little bit of milk in it, that someone cooked for you, that you can enjoy delicious dishes that have milk in them, because yogurt is different in flavor than milk is. So there are health benefits. It is a very dense food. So there are health benefits to milk, but all of those benefits are also present in yogurt. So cultured milk actually just makes them more available. So cultured milk and yogurt are the same. So truly the idea of drinking milk is really, for me, freedom, taste. Some people enjoy it, makes them happy, those kind of things. So I don't like to shut out foods that are real good foods if there's not a reason. But also, to your point, is you don't necessarily have to tolerate milk or cheese, but it is good to have probiotics and do yogurt and things like that. So you don't have to drink milk, but the point is you want to be able to drink milk if you are able to. It also shows that your gut is strong and your enzymes are on and your flora is healthy, or at least healthier than it was. So that is part of that. So my goal when I'm working with someone, when they're working on food, and I have a little side goal that's priority for me, even if it's not for them, because I said, it's fine, I feel better, I could never eat dairy again. And then I was able to eat dairy without symptoms, and it is delicious. There's benefits to it. So I'm glad you love milk. Okay, so what we want to do is we start on, if you are going to heal this, right? You're doing GAPS. You're on stage 1. If you have this significant of a dairy allergy, you're probably not going to see healing until you get on intro. You can do full GAPS with lots of meat stock. You might get some progress if you don't have a very severe reaction, but you're probably going to need to do intro if you are correcting a significant dairy issue. Okay, so I'm just going to say that up front. You're going to have to do intro. I don't know how long it's going to take you. Be in for the long haul, but dairy is worth it. Okay, so number 1, homemade ghee. Most people, 90% of people, can tolerate homemade ghee or good quality store-bought ghee from companies that basically make it at home. So that is where you want to start. If you have no issues with that, you've already been doing that, then you can go ahead and go to organic butter, cultured butter, homemade butter from raw milk, whatever you want to do. Cultured butter will be a little more easy to digest if you're needing to go very, very slow and nuance this even further. But most people can go to butter because, again, we are not trying to be as creative with the limitations. We're trying to heal the body so limitations are less. All right, so then we do butter. And if we're having issues with each of these steps, you want to have 6 weeks between the steps. So you would do ghee for 6 weeks and then get to where you can do a large amount, not just a teaspoonful or a toothpick full. If you do that and then try to jump to butter, you're not going to make it. You have to tolerate ghee well, and then you can go to butter. You don't have to tolerate ghee well and wait 6 weeks. But by the end of 6 weeks, at least a week or 2, you need to be tolerating it well, having amounts that are large, and then you try a little bit of butter. Then you work up on the butter, and when you're ready, you go to sour cream and potentially a yogurt culture that's 24 hours or more. Usually this is tolerated well if people have a protein allergy to milk. They may not be able to do the yogurt right away. That's why I have people do sour cream first. Sour cream is nice to be able to get animal fat in, right? Sour cream, butter, ghee, animal fat's hugely helpful. When you do sour cream or creme fraiche, technically, that you make yourself from your own good quality yogurt culture or a cultured kit, like a probiotic powder pack or something like that, then when you're tolerating the sour cream well, which is full cream with probably a little bit of milk protein in it, but it's cultured, so it's all fine. Then we do homemade yogurt next, right? So that step is often done at the same time, but if we have a protein allergy, we have to maybe wait a little bit longer, because what's happening is you're doing intro diet, right? Not the dairy introduction, but the GAPS intro stages. So you're introducing foods and your gut is healing. And as the healing progresses, your gut is going to be sealed. And then proteins all of a sudden won't bother you anymore. You have the potential to turn this around in 5 to 7 days because we make new gut cells in a healthy environment every 5 to 7 days. If you are very nutrient depleted, have a lot of inflammation, it's going to take a lot longer. That's why the 6 weeks in between for a significant allergy is going to be needed. But here's what we do. When you have an allergy, we're going to do the skin sensitivity test. We can do it at every step. We can do it for ghee and for butter and for yogurt. If you have a red dot, you're not ready for that food. Your body's too reactive. If you don't have a red dot, you can start the food at a little amount. You may still have some shifting, feeding flora reaction, energetic herbal reaction, but it's not an allergy. And unless the symptoms are severe, you can keep going. Once you get the yogurt in and the sour cream with a yogurt culture or more mild culture, then we move to Kefir Cream. So you culture your cream with Kefir culture or Kefir grains or things like that. And then you can also do homemade kefir, which is milk proteins. Though that has a lot more sugar in it too than milk does, so you're going to get a stronger kefir culture, which is very probiotically strong. It's great for you. This is a great book. It's called Probiotic Foods versus Commercial Probiotics by Dr. Becky Plotner. She's a GAPS practitioner, did a lot of research about different fermented foods and the studies about what things they treat and or cure in our bodies. So one of the things, I just said cure on YouTube. All right. Algorithms, they don't like a claim of cure, but you know, it's food. Food does do that. Okay, number 2. Oh, sorry. In this, she talks about milk kefir. And milk kefir is helpful to reverse your dairy intolerance. But it's very, very strong. 1 milliliter, which is 1/5 of a teaspoon, 1 milliliter of milk kefir that's homemade well and properly has 10 billion bacterial and microbial bodies in it. 10 billion. That is 5 biocults if you take biocults in 1 milliliter. So we are going to go slow and low. There's a ton of things. So if you're needing to start kefir, do Kefir Cream. That is a lot less sugar because it just doesn't multiply as much. And then you work on adding it to yogurt and doing kefir in a milk. Sorry, don't add it to yogurt, add it to milk and make it kefir. Once that's done and 6 months or more have passed, 6 weeks or more have passed, then we will try a little bit of organic cheddar cheese. If you're here, you probably don't need to do the skin sensitivity test. If you want to, you would just kind of crush it up a little bit with your finger and rub it on. That's going to be fine. Organic cheddar cheese can be a great one because it's very available. You want to have a aged 6 months or more cheese because that's going to be more cultured, right? More fermented. And then you can try other ones and eventually you can get to soft cheeses. Then you get to live natural yogurt from the store, sour cream from the store, creme fraiche from the store where they maybe haven't cultured it for 24 hours. There's kind of cheats with that, but it's not going to be the best. This is the best way. And then later you may be able to try raw milk. That's not technically, well, it's on late GAPS, full GAPS. If you're really well, you can do milk on full GAPS, but it's really not the point. So that is dairy introduction schedule. That's how we do that. It has to be done with milk, right? Or with, I'm sorry, strike that. Dairy introduction protocol has to be done with GAPS, probably intro, to actually see healing progression. If you were just to say, introduce this to your body and it will help you tolerate dairy, that's not how it works. This is, you are doing other things to heal your leaky gut. And as you do that, here's how you introduce dairy back into your diet. So that is what it's for and what it's not for. That is the plan if you want to do dairy. So I hope that was helpful to you. I'll kind of hem and haw here for a second if people have some questions or comments that they want to put into the chat. But that is the presentation that I have for today. Thanks for hanging in there. It's a long day. My brain is not as coordinated as I would like it to be, but we can't always have perfect speaking. So thanks for hanging in. Thanks for watching this later, people who do on replay, and for sharing it with people who have no hope that they can do dairy, or they think that dairy is inherently bad for them. There are a lot of nutrients in dairy, and I forgot to talk about that at the beginning. There's butyrate, which helps your gut to heal. Colostrum, which is a different dairy, but colostrum really helps to nourish a body, especially if it's been very malnourished or chronically ill. That's a super helpful thing. It's very helpful in type 1 diabetes to help your body to heal, to do the colostrum, that first milk. The amount of animal fat you can eat is significantly easier when you are able to eat sour cream, butter, and cream, and ghee, right? And so those are some of the benefits. There is nutrition in there. There's fat, soluble vitamins in there, especially grass-fed. It's easier to obtain. It's just an easier thing to obtain. It is hard to get good quality lard. It is hard to get good quality tallow, but we are set up as a society to have really nice milk and milk production. So that works well. But when you get too saturated of a GAPS community without getting some butchers on board, we run out of fat really fast in our community here because so many people are looking for it. So there is all of that. Okay, I think I've waited long enough for comments to show up if they are going to. Thank you all for being here so much. Yeah, it's been almost 3 minutes since I started talking. So I think we are good. Thank you so much for coming. Please pass this on to people who have no hope. It is incredible to be able to be more free. I was fine without dairy. My body was fine. There's other ways to get calcium, etc., etc. But there are benefits to dairy, and the freedom to not be stuck and limited is one, and knowing my body is healthy enough to tolerate that is great. That's a really great feeling and a really encouraging thing and a great way to kind of test what that is. So, okay, thanks everyone for being here. Have a great night. Enjoy the coolness now that the sun's down. If you're here local, it's hot. I think it's hot everywhere today.